The man's arm was suddenly scorched by the sunlight. He looked up at the sky in horror, only to see a beam of sunlight suddenly shining down on Earth. The next second, the ozone layer tore open a large hole at a speed visible to the naked eye. The scorching sunlight directly shone on the sea surface, and the originally cold seawater began to boil instantly. The fish inside were turned into boiled fish in an instant, just like a pot of fresh fish soup. What's even scarier is that the scorching sunlight was rapidly extending and was about to shine on the Golden Gate Bridge ahead. The man took a look and immediately closed the car window, turning on the air conditioning, unaware that the bridge's railings had already been heated to a red-hot state. At this moment, the man noticed that the temperature was still rising. The entire bridge was sizzling, and in just a few seconds, all the railings melted. The man tried to drive away, but the tires had also melted due to the high temperature. As the suspension cables were completely burned off, the entire bridge finally couldn't withstand the heat and was burnt in half. All the cars exploded, spilling down like dumplings. The entire bridge sank to the bottom of the sea in an instant, but this couldn't stop the disaster from continuing to spread. A terrifying heat wave was advancing towards the city at the speed of light. In the next second, the heat wave destroyed everything in its path. In just 1 minute, the entire city was reduced to ruins by the heat wave, and this disaster was caused by humans themselves. So, what exactly happened? Not long ago, strange phenomena occurred in a certain country. All patients with pacemakers suddenly died at the same time, which immediately drew the government's attention. They sent people to a university, where they found Josh, a geophysicist, who was giving a lecture. They brought him to a secret base. Josh also met his long-lost friend Serge, who was an expert in high-energy weapons. The military invited the two of them to analyze the bizarre incident that happened yesterday. Why did people with pacemakers suddenly die? The military suspected this was an electromagnetic pulse attack by the enemy, but according to their judgment, this was impossible, because with current human technology, it's impossible to create such a high-intensity electromagnetic pulse. General Purcell was relieved to hear their negative answer. Meanwhile, strange phenomena were occurring all over the world. Flocks of pigeons in the square suddenly lost their direction, crashing into buildings around the city and causing deaths. People were scared and fled in all directions, while the pigeons flew against the crowd, creating chaos throughout the city. This led to dozens of car accidents, resulting in serious casualties. After a while, many dead pigeons were left on the streets. Back at the school, Josh saw this incident on the news. His colleague told him this was the third bird-related injury incident recently. This phenomenon was indeed rare, but it gave him some insight. It's well known that birds use the Earth's magnetic field to navigate during long migrations. Could this mean there's something wrong with the Earth's magnetic field? Josh immediately asked his colleague to check if there had been any whale or dolphin strandings, or if there were any unusual weather phenomena. If the magnetic field was having issues, then there would definitely be various abnormal events on Earth. At that moment, a space shuttle was preparing to return to Earth. After re-entering the atmosphere, it deviated from its re-entry trajectory for unknown reasons. The commander was stunned when he saw this, because the navigation system showed the direction was correct. The navigation system must have malfunctioned. They were already very close to the ground, and it was too late to change course. They had to land as soon as possible. The command center urgently worked to select a landing plan, but it was peak traffic time, and clearing a runway was extremely difficult. Then Beck found a suitable spot, a river under construction. The commander initially wanted to refuse this risky move, but by then, the shuttle had already flown over the stadium. They had no choice but to downshift and decelerate. They deployed the landing gear and headed for the river. Fortunately, the bridge height was just enough for them to pass through. The shuttle began to decelerate with full force. Fortunately, they narrowly avoided a disaster. After 7 days and nights of calculation, and combining the recent series of strange phenomena, Josh finally reached a terrifying conclusion. The Earth's core was gradually stopping its rotation. He immediately informed Paul at the Department of Defense, stating that the world was approaching doomsday. Paul didn't initially believe Josh's conclusion, but when he closely examined the data Josh had collected, he found the situation to be even worse than expected. Initially, there were unusually high-altitude static discharges in the sky. That evening, senior officials from the Department of Defense held an emergency meeting, asking Josh to explain what was wrong with the Earth. To make the explanation as brief as possible, Josh started by saying that the Earth would be destroyed within a year. Josh then began explaining the reason. The Earth has always been enveloped by an electromagnetic field composed of currents and magnetism, which helps humanity shield against cosmic radiation. However, the electromagnetic field is now slowly disappearing. To make it more understandable for the top officials, Josh took a peach, cut it open, and gave an example. For example, the thin skin represents the Earth, the flesh represents the mantle, and the pit is divided into two parts, the inner core and the outer core. The outer core is a layer of hot metal rotating around the inner core, and it is this rotation that forms the electromagnetic field. But now, the outer core has failed like an engine. It is unclear what caused this sudden change. Once the electromagnetic field becomes unstable, a series of strange phenomena will occur. For example, static discharges, which will lead to super thunderstorms in various places, and then things will get progressively worse. All electronic devices will be burned out by intense cosmic radiation, and the Earth will return to the Stone Age. Once the inner core stops rotating, the Earth will lose the protection of the magnetic field, and high-energy particles from solar winds and other cosmic rays will directly bombard the Earth. The atmosphere will be blown away from the Earth, water will evaporate, and all life will perish. The high-ranking officials were all shocked upon hearing this. General Purcell hastened to ask what should be done. Everything happens for a reason. It doesn't happen out of nowhere. There must be a solution. Josh stated that there was no solution. People could only wait to die, because the Earth's core is like the engine of the planet. It not only has a temperature of 9,000 degrees but is also 2,000 kilometers from the surface. With current technology, humans have no way of reaching it. The General Purcell, however, said that we can even go to space, so there's nothing we can't do. Josh directly retorted that space is empty, which left General Purcell speechless, but at this moment, Paul suggested that there might be a way. After saying this, they took a helicopter to a desert. The helicopter landed in front of an abandoned warehouse. It turned out that Paul had a friend who was developing an ultrasonic rock crusher, and this person was Brazelton. He had been engaged in ultrasonic rock crushing research for over 20 years and possessed highly penetrating laser technology, which might help them break through the Earth to reach the core, accomplishing this seemingly impossible task. To test its performance, the geologist Brazelton prepared to experiment on a mountain. For safety, all personnel present had to wear safety helmets. Once everything was ready, Brazelton activated the machine switch. As the laser cannon slowly rotated, a high-temperature laser beam instantly focused on a mountain 10 meters away. As the machine's speed increased, 23 dazzling laser beams hit the mountain's surface, causing dust to fly everywhere. When the energy reached its limit, a rumbling sound came from inside the mountain. Seeing this, Brazelton excitedly cheered in place. Seeing that the test was nearly complete, Brazelton quickly stopped the machine. As the dust settled, the staff got up from the ground. Could this machine really penetrate the hard mountain? When they saw the test results, everyone looked amazed. In just a few seconds, the massive mountain had a large hole drilled through it, and it was a clear, smooth, and bright hole from front to back. Who would have thought that such an unremarkable-looking thing could have such powerful capabilities? With this machine, it would be possible to open a passage to the Earth's core. However, a special material was still needed to make a spacecraft hull that could withstand temperatures of 9,000 degrees. Brazelton then showcased another invention. He placed a small white mouse into a special box and eagerly activated the laser cannon. When the laser hit the box, something amazing happened. The concrete beneath the box, along with the heavy steel plate and wall, were all instantly pierced by the laser, but the box remained unscathed. Even more shocking was that the white mouse inside was alive and kicking. This was simply unbelievable. How could there be such a heat-resistant material in the world? Brazelton explained that it was a combination of crystal and an ultra-low temperature tungsten titanium matrix that achieved this effect. This heat-resistant material, called tungsten titanium alloy, not only withstands temperatures of over 10,000 degrees but also absorbs pressure and heat and converts them into kinetic energy. If a ship were made of this material, it would become more robust the deeper and hotter it went. Brazelton then opened the cockpit for a few people and said that if given 10 years, he could build a drilling ship that could travel to the Earth's core. If he could truly build it, even the Trisolarans would have to answer to him. Seeing this astonishing research achievement, General Purcell asked a serious question.
What would it take to get it done in 3 months?
Brazelton thought they were joking.
$50 billion. Will you take a check?
But now they had less than 3 months left. Now, the Earth's core had severe issues, causing the Earth's protective layer to be punctured by the sunlight. In a year, when the Earth's magnetic field completely disappears, the Earth would be roasted into charcoal by the solar wind. So they needed to quickly reach the core and restore the core's rotation. To ensure the drilling ship was built quickly, the military swiftly mobilized all national resources. Brazelton led 2,000 workers in rapid production, creating a unique shuttle. At the same time, the personnel responsible for saving the Earth were also selected. Their mission was to pilot the ship into the Earth's core and detonate 100 billion tons of nuclear bombs to restart the Earth's inner core. To ensure the mission's success, 6 experts from various fields donned protective suits. They had to adapt to the ship's environment within 3 months. With workers working around the clock, the drilling ship slowly took shape. The drilling ship's pilots were Beck and her superior. They began daily simulation training. While advancing the mission to prevent Earth's destruction, they also aimed to avoid causing public panic. They enlisted a top hacker named Rat to block information as much as possible before the operation. Soon, high-altitude static discharges appeared again, indicating that the Earth's magnetic field was weakening and the situation was becoming increasingly grim. The sky over previously sunny Rome became overcast, with thunder and lightning. Initially, no one took it seriously, but soon the indoor metal became electrified, and people were unaware of it. Until the next moment, the TV malfunctioned. A man wanted to reboot the TV, but a current suddenly appeared on his hand, followed by a terrifying scene. There was a large-scale lightning storm in the sky, frantically attacking the Colosseum, plunging humans into unprecedented panic. As the geomagnetic field gradually disappeared, a lot of static electricity was released, triggering a super thunderstorm, carving a deep trench into the ground. The power of this storm was no less than a precision missile strike. Statues were instantly destroyed, and the Colosseum, filled with too much lightning energy, experienced a violent explosion, with continuous thunderstorms striking down, destroying buildings in the city. Rome suffered unprecedented disaster in just half an hour. Seeing the news, the group realized that the earth was collapsing much faster than they had imagined, but this was just the beginning of the nightmare. Fortunately, the drilling ship, which was supposed to take 10 years to build, was completed in just 3 months. So, without delay, they immediately flew to the Mariana Trench. Restarting the Earth's core was urgent. A rescue team of 6 experts from different fields dived into the core to execute the restart mission. After a quick toast, the 6 boarded the cockpit. The command center soon completed the final test. The pilot pressed the button, and the drilling ship started operating at full power. As the command center's countdown slowly ended, the 6-section oversized cabin Earth shuttle dived into the deep sea. The Mariana Trench is the deepest trench in the world, and it's also where the Earth's crust is the weakest. Brazelton's drilling ship withstood the underwater pressure, becoming more robust with increased pressure. As the drilling ship moved towards the weakest part of the crust, there was a sudden loud bang, and an underwater earthquake occurred. The tectonic plates cracked, and large rocks collided fiercely. Endless seawater formed a massive whirlpool, trapping the drilling ship inside, making it impossible to escape. Brazelton immediately ordered them to follow the whirlpool downward, accelerating forward. Seeing that they were about to crash into the earth, Brazelton quickly activated the laser cannon. Just seconds before the impact, the cannon pierced through the rock, and the entire drilling ship instantly drilled inside. Meanwhile, at the control center on the surface, after anxiously waiting, their location finally appeared on the screen. They had entered the core area, beginning their journey to the center of the Earth. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. At their current speed, if all went well, they would reach the Earth's core in 24 hours. Now, the Earth's future depended entirely on these 6 people. Initially, their journey was relatively smooth. It took only 15 minutes to pass through the crust and reach the mantle. The gauge showed an external pressure of 800,000 pounds, and the ship was still intact. This filled the cabin's occupants with confidence. However, the terrifying and unknown underground was an area humans had never set foot in, not so easy to traverse. 12 hours later, when the drilling ship dived into an 800-mile deep pit, a large area of unknown material suddenly appeared ahead. No one knew what it was. Beck stated that impassable materials would appear black on the ship's sensors. After a moment of silence, Josh realized it was an underground cavern, but it was too late to avoid it. Frightened, they quickly returned to their seats, fastened their seat belts, and prepared for a collision with the cavern floor. However, when the ship reached 700 miles in the mantle, the drilling ship unexpectedly entered an unknown area. Then, with a bang, the drilling ship suddenly lost resistance and fell freely downwards. As the falling speed increased, the ship heavily crashed into the ground. It was a crystal cavern. The ship slid forward rapidly along the cavern floor, and after smashing through numerous crystals, it finally came to a slow halt. The problem was that a giant crystal column blocked the laser cannon's firing port. If it wasn't cleared, they couldn't continue forward. They had no choice but to put on heat-resistant suits and go outside to repair. It was then that they discovered the area was filled with priceless amethysts. While marveling at nature's wonder, they began cutting the crystal column. Suddenly, a drop of lava fell onto Josh's foot. He looked up and saw that the drilling ship had broken through the enclosed environment, causing large amounts of lava to pour down through the hole. At the same time, crystals above fell like spikes. Soon, the area would be completely submerged by lava. So, Brazelton immediately sped up the cutting process. However, at this critical moment, the cutter suddenly ran out of oxygen and stopped working. Seeing that the lava was about to reach them, Josh decisively disconnected his spacesuit's oxygen supply and connected it to the cutter, restarting the laser. Due to the lack of oxygen, he soon fainted. Luckily, Brazelton finally cut through the obstructing crystal column, and the two quickly carried Josh into the cabin. Outside, only Commander Iverson remained. He instructed Beck inside to activate the laser device. Seeing the laser cannon functioning properly, Commander Iverson was about to return to the cabin happily. But just then, a crystal fell from the sky, piercing his helmet. Commander Iverson was instantly killed, falling headfirst into the boiling lava. However, there was no time for mourning. To complete the mission, Beck tearfully took the helm and engaged the thrusters to continue deeper underground. Then, the entire cave collapsed. 24 hours later, they finally reached the surface of the Earth's core. Josh and the others went to the weapons room to adjust the nuclear bomb's countdown. But then another accident occurred. The drilling ship had entered a diamond area, with diamonds of various sizes surrounding them. To pass through, they had to carefully avoid those hard diamonds. Luckily, Beck piloted the drilling ship skillfully through the narrow gaps. She thought the danger was over, but just when she was happy, a sharp diamond floated over and collided, scratching the last section of the weapons compartment. This caused a pressure leak, and the tail began to deform. Seeing this, Beck immediately called for the others to evacuate the weapons control room. However, Serge realized the nuclear bomb activation device was left inside. At that moment, as the door was closing, Serge chose to rush into the weapons room. He put the unfinished nuclear bomb launcher into a box, picked up the notebook recording the nuclear bomb data, and just as the door was closing, he quickly handed these two items to Josh.
No, sir!
He himself was pitifully trapped in the damaged cabin, and the leaking weapons room began to be seriously deformed. Josh could only watch as his friend was crushed to death, as the cabin was instantly crushed. The damaged section automatically separated. The deceased Serge was a weapons expert who recorded an important formula in his notebook, and today was his daughter's birthday. Josh and Serge had been friends for many years. Losing Serge, Josh was deeply saddened. They hadn't even reached the core yet, and 2 of the 16 members had already died. The remaining members felt very sad, but the mission had to continue. 35 hours later, the drilling ship finally reached the Earth's outer core. The temperature was extremely high, and the pressure was immense. It was a completely liquid world, but at this moment, the drilling ship's speed suddenly increased, and they were expected to reach the core in 5 hours. At this point, Josh discovered that the core density here was lower than previously predicted. Upon hearing this, Paul immediately sensed trouble. He asked Brazelton to input the new core density into the equation for simulation, and the computer's simulated result failed. It was clear that their initial calculation was wrong. The nuclear bombs they brought were not enough to restart the core. Now they were in trouble. The Earth's magnetic field had already shown serious abnormalities, and they didn't have much time left. Just when they were feeling hopeless, Paul revealed a shocking secret. He requested that General Purcell stop the repair plan and initiate the backup fate plan. Upon receiving news of the mission's failure, General Purcell immediately ordered the initiation of the fate plan. It turned out that the military had developed a device that could trigger earthquakes. If activated, it could directly send pulses to the Earth's core, causing a massive earthquake. While this could restart the Earth's core, it could also bring great disaster to humanity. The reason the core stopped rotating was due to the military testing this weapon. This plan was highly classified, with only a few people knowing about it. Upon learning this, everyone realized that this was not a natural disaster but a man-made catastrophe. The Surface Command Center issued a return order, which Josh immediately refused. To prevent a tragedy from happening again, he, Brazelton, and Beck planned to stick to the original nuclear explosion plan. Paul was furious and ranted, demanding an immediate return, but was knocked out by Brazelton. Josh then quickly contacted the top hacker, Rat, through an encrypted channel, asking him to prevent the fate plan from being activated. Subsequently, Josh and Brazelton started simulating the nuclear explosion but failed countless times. Paul eventually woke up and was much calmer. When he heard the two were troubled over the lack of nuclear bombs, he suddenly thought of a way to restart the core. Since all the nuclear bombs exploding at once couldn't complete the task, they could first detonate one, creating a strong shock wave, and then drop another at a certain distance. Before the aftershock dissipated, they could drop another, using the resonant shock waves from consecutive explosions to possibly restart the core. 5 smaller explosions were better than one big one. The simulation results showed success. After 42 hours, the drilling ship was about to reach the Earth's inner core. They came up with a plan to place a nuclear bomb in each compartment. Otherwise, the bomb would explode immediately if it detached from the ship. Then, they would launch each compartment separately and detonate each one on a timer. However, the original flight path design didn't account for this method, so for the compartments to detach independently, the piston on the heat shield needed to be opened. The temperature there reached 9,000 degrees, which required manual operation, but the protective suit could only withstand 5,000 degrees, meaning this was a one-way mission. So, they decided to draw straws. Unlike the other two who were overly tense, Brazelton remained calm and decided to step forward. As the ship's builder and the only one familiar with its structure, he didn't want his creation to be ruined. He put on his protective suit, bid farewell to his teammates, and went to the ship's heat shield. When he opened the hatch, a wave of heat almost knocked him over. He struggled to step out, but after only a few steps, the extreme heat immediately attracted the wrench in his hand, which melted. Brazelton faced the intense heat, moving forward step by step with difficulty, and his shoes were completely scorched. Suffering immense pain, he finally reached the engine nozzle, used his last bit of strength to open the valve successfully, and disconnected the main shaft from the other compartments. Brazelton, attacked by the heat wave, couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed. He held on just long enough for Beck to start the thruster. To ease Brazelton's suffering, Beck tearfully activated the thruster, and Brazelton was instantly burned to ashes. Next, Josh and Paul quickly set the nuclear bombs countdown, then hurriedly left the compartment. Upon receiving the notification, Beck immediately jettisoned the compartment carrying the bomb. At the Surface Command Center, General Purcell also simultaneously ordered a pulse to be sent to the Earth's core. Just as the countdown began, Rat managed to hack into the fate plan's control system, successfully averting the disaster and buying time for Josh and the others to complete their plan. Soon, the first, second, third, and fourth bombs were successfully deployed. While they were setting the fourth bomb, Paul suddenly realized that the calculations were off. and they were short 10 kilograms of nuclear fuel to achieve the desired power. At that moment, the drilling ship was suddenly hit by flames and started shaking. Josh was unfortunately pinned down by the bomb on his shoulder and couldn't move. Even with all their efforts, the bomb wouldn't budge. Beck then announced that the compartment would detach in 50 seconds, urging the two to evacuate quickly. However, the flames had cut off the communication system, so Beck couldn't hear their responses. In a crisis, Josh urged Paul to evacuate immediately. At that moment, Beck, unaware of the situation, suddenly accelerated and changed course. The strong inertia freed Josh from his predicament, and Paul stumbled and fell to the ground. Unexpectedly, the next second, the heavy bomb rolled over and pinned Paul's legs. Fate has a way of playing tricks on people. Seeing only 10 seconds left before the compartment would eject, Paul immediately pushed Josh out, and he, along with the bomb, followed the compartment as it separated from the main ship. To ensure the final nuclear explosion's power, Josh decided to cut off the drilling ship's power. Instantly, the entire ship lost power and floated in place. Then, he removed the power unit's nuclear reactor. Despite the heat, he dragged the reactor to the bomb to increase its power. He quickly activated the button and evacuated. The final compartment carrying the bomb was also ejected, which meant their drilling ship now had no power for the return journey. Josh and Beck knew they were doomed and lay still, waiting to suffocate. As the countdown ended, the just deployed bombs began detonating. At that moment, Josh noticed Brazelton's element sphere and suddenly recalled that Brazelton had mentioned that the ship's hull material could convert heat into power. They could utilize this to have the hull absorb the core's heat and restart the ship. Without delay, they immediately began retrofitting the ship, removing the lines connected to the reactor. After a while, the other bombs detonated sequentially, and Josh successfully welded all the control lines to the ship's hull. Next, it was time to witness a miracle. Fortunately, they succeeded. The cabin regained power. At that moment, the shockwave from the nuclear explosion reached the ship, and they prepared, setting their direction homeward. The powerful shockwave propelled the ship toward the surface at incredible speed, and the drilling ship climbed swiftly through the hole it had drilled. At this speed, they would reach the surface in a few hours, much faster than when they arrived. The ground control center detected the consecutive explosion's success, and the screen showed the core activation succeeded. Slowly rotating, the electromagnetic field was restored, and humanity was saved. Sudden disasters around the world also disappeared. 4 hours later, the drilling ship successfully emerged from the volcano, returning to the seabed. The cold seawater cooled the ship, and the drilling ship lost power and stopped, losing contact with the control center. However, the command center pinpointed the ship's last location, and the military immediately dispatched a carrier fleet for rescue. After searching for several hours without finding any trace of the ship, sonar detected only the sounds of numerous whales. General Purcell ordered the search to stop. Just when everyone had lost hope, Rat suddenly had an epiphany. Josh used the ship's ultrasound to attract many whales to sing to the ship, using the whales to send signals to the nearby navy. Soon, they spotted whale activity on the sea surface and finally located the drilling ship. They began salvaging the drilling ship from the seabed. This is a disaster movie released 20 years ago. The film's imagination of nature and technology is not weak at all, featuring incredibly beautiful crystal layers, ultra-cool ship designs, and advanced laser and material technologies. This is technology that might be possible 100 years from now. If such a core ship were built and piloted, even Superman couldn't stop you, and the Trisolarans would have to listen to you. At the same time, it reminds us that technology should be used to protect Earth, not destroy it. Well, that's the end of today's movie. I'm Movie Lover. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.